artist. I graduated from San Francisco State in 2012, so almost 10 years. In a few months, it will be 10 years. And I actually was a theater major studying costume designs, and then I got more into cinema later on afterwards. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. But if anyone has questions on Zoom, leave them in the chat, and then here, hold them, and then we'll have a Q&A at the very end. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Colette. I'm an artist, and I'm sorry.
What was that?
Oh, that's my dad talking on the.
Oh.
That was my dad talking on Zoom. Dad, you didn't mute yourself. I was like, I thought I recognized his voice. Hi, my name is Colette. I'm an artist and content creator, and I'm here to talk about my relationship with social media as a visual artist today and how to use it as a tool.
And Aisha?
I'll go, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha Gomez Qureshi. I'm a harpist in the Bay Area. So here to talk about music and how it's impacted my life. And I'm happy to be here to meet all of you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Damrow. I'm a choreographer. I've been in the Bay for 12 years making work for the stage and also for film. In addition to doing choreography work, I also do a project called Merit Project, where I support artists in making work. And we did a film premiere last year, and we've also done live shows. So in addition to making my own work, I also support artists in making work too. So I'm excited to hear questions and things along the way. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't you stay up there?
I will stay.
Just give us your spiel.
Oh, throw me on the spot. Cool, I'm excited. Can I take mask off while I speak? Is
Sure,
that
if
allowed?
that's comfortable,
Okay,
then-
I'm far from everyone, and Zoom, you won't get my breath. So yeah, whole spiel. Like I mentioned, I've been in the Bay for 12 years. My work is mainly contemporary dance, which we do floor work and inversion work and really highly physical movement. A lot of our work is centered around design and architecture. I have a background in both of those things. So I really incorporate how we exist in cities, how we exist in space, how that relates to kind of the human experience as well. I do a lot of like scenic design as well, costumes, all of those things incorporated into the work live. And so translating to film in the past year over COVID has really brought that to life in a different way. And especially with dance audiences, like bringing in that art form into the digital format has been super fun and super exciting and like a whirlwind of things as well. So that's been really rad. Yeah, what else can I share? Yeah, in addition to making work, I also teach in the Bay at ODC in the Mission, and I've taught at City College and many other schools here in the Bay. So yeah, the other work I've done, we've presented at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, and we've been commissioned by Oakland Museum of California. So yeah, just bringing in dance and sharing that along the way as much as we can. Yeah.
Cool.
That is good spiel.
Yeah, that's a great spiel. I want to show your video again.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We showed it a little bit when people were rolling in, but let's show it to everyone else who just arrived.
Yeah, and this is a film that this is just the trailer. Oh, this isn't even the whole film.
Oh, did you want to see the whole thing?
Yeah, I can show the whole I mean, it's like
Okay.
it's not like 20 minutes. It's like a 3-minute film. So yeah, this film you're gonna see was co-created with one of the dancers, Shireen Darayan. If you want to go on YouTube, I can. It's private
here.
though. Oh yeah, you got those links.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, technology and all those things. So yeah, here we go.
Hold on, let me share with everyone here.
And we work with a costume designer on this piece. I also work with a composer every year as well. And this was like some of our first, sorry, I'm not on camera. Some of our first dives of making the work. So yeah, enjoy, and let's make sure, if you can't hear sound, wave at us on Zoom. Thanks for watching that, everybody. Yeah, and that film was created by being confined in our spaces over the pandemic, and just how we can break through that and break free from that and feel the expansiveness of ourselves in space, in nature, and all of that. Yeah. Next person or questions, how we doing the flow?
Let's ask a couple questions and then we can move on.
I'd just like to hear about like the collaborative process of this work, and like how did that work? Did you guys like bounce ideas off of each other and everything, or like was it like very like one person, like was it like you and orchestrated? Like how did that go?
Yeah, questions about the collaborative process. Oh, it's different every time. But with this project, and with all of the projects I do with artistic collaborators, I really like to involve them in the whole process. So especially with Shireen, since she was the movement artist, we talked about a lot of concepts. The way I work artistically is I build movement studies at the start of a process. So whether it's about being confined in spaces or whether it's about different forms of architecture, we like really workshop ideas, like what does concrete feel like? Like, how would you move like concrete? You know, like we try to really embody that sense. So when we're creating and choreographing, it's not just throwing dance moves on a concept. We're really relating to the theme, relating to the topic as we go along. Then with this film had costume designers, Olutola was their name. And we really worked together in like thinking of things that Shireen could work with and play with around her that necessarily wasn't inhibiting her movement, but could really open up that space and she could play within it. The film element, the director Nate, or the DP Nate, he came in a little later in the process this round. I found that's how I've been working recently with like videographers and things like that, just kind of how the timeline went. But I'd love to really work with someone from the beginning and see how that process really changed and could change and shift. With the music design and composition, Aaron Gold is our resident choreographer or composer that I've worked with for the past 7 years. So that's really something we craft and create together right from the get-go pretty much. So yeah, it's fun. I feed off collaboration so much, and just what other people's ideas are totally can sometimes change what I'm envisioning or seeing as well. So super fun. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said that the DP was someone else. Did you direct then this film?
Yeah,
And
so
what's that filmmaking process like for you as a choreographer?
oh, it's brand new. I'm a baby. I'm in a baby phase, but I think, you know, directing in that role, and Nate had never done dance films either. Like he has done like documentaries and things like that. So I think when we're taking the approach with film and movement, it's like, can we take the audience right there with the dancer, with the performers? Like that's something really special. And even with like translating to Instagram posts and things like that, like we can move with the dancer with gimbals and different things like that. So I was really guiding Nate more with a choreographic eye, and, you know, seeing different shots and framing, I was really leaning on him for, and like what would look good on camera and translated on camera. So that's how I took on the directorship role in that sense, is like with my choreographer hat, like what do we want to focus in on? Like what details, you know, when you see a stage performance, you know, you're potentially this far away and you might not get to see what the fingers are doing or how they're relating to the costume or the ground, in this case, because we were outdoors, but we can really guide the audience and the viewer's eye to what we want to see. They're kind of like a captive audience in that sense when we have film and dance incorporated. So that's been super fun to play with. And that was kind of my experience in that role. Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you faced bringing this concept that you have in your brain and making it into something that's possible and shareable?
Yeah, bringing the concept to life. Oh, I dream really big and I tend to have to like scale down. I had this whole vision that Shireen would be in this costume that would like transform and move and shift. So I think timeline has a lot of effect on how much we can create and what time. And I think when we were filming this, you know, definitely there were COVID things we had to deal with and all of that. So dreaming big and like being really hopeful about things and like scaling back then if I have to, is kind of how I approach this type of like work and things like that. I think also with film, what I found has been challenging as well is also like accessibility to like really amazing equipment. You know, things get pricey as you add on with making art. I think we all can relate to that in a way, like shit costs money, you know? And so, you know, being scrappy in a way, but also like valuing what I'm making, like working with a DP that has a really nice camera. Luckily, he's the brother of my composer, you know, so you start to find, or I've started to find like a network that goes beyond just like, oh, I need a videographer. Who am I going to pull from? And it just, you start to build, I've started to build that collaborator circle wider and wider in that sense. So I think, you know, budgets and money is always a challenge. But yeah, just finding ways to make it work. And sometimes you have to spray paint costumes, you know, and it may not be the material you want, but actually when it comes out really cool. And sometimes those ideas that you think might be more on the crafty end or the scrappy end can really turn into something cool that someone else has never tried. So I always say go for those big ideas and try to make them happen. Go to Michael's, go to some things and get inspired. And I think also just one more thing to share on that is like the details, like thinking of those things that may not make a difference to someone, but like Shireen's shoes, for example, we had to wear shoes because we're outside and she didn't want to be, you know, dancing on rocks and things like that. And, you know, she had these like New Balance tennies and I'm like, Shireen, you can't wear these. So I ended up gluing and like putting on some of the tubes that were from another costume with like gray tape and spray painting them, but it made it part of the costume and you didn't see these shoes that were like totally random and like pulled your eye away from what, hopefully didn't pull your eye away from what was happening. So those are like that extra time to like think of details and like polishing and like having the whole look feel complete, I found has like been really satisfying as well to add to the process and the final result. Yeah.
Follow-up question. What was the time constraint on this project?
A lot of just scheduling with collaborators in all honesty. Nate, the DP, lives in LA. So getting people to fly up. I worked with my cousin who does hair and makeup. So she also flew up to do the project. And then, you know, like, is the variant really shitty? And we have to like be more mindful of COVID and things like that. So it was just like, it was more so fitting it into when we wanted to do it. And I had a goal in the end of, we premiered these in last November, so November 2021. So I had a goal that I wanted to present something because I was like, so let's do it. So we ended up fitting it into the summer and then I did all the editing. So I wanted to have enough time to edit and then present. So, and I hadn't done a lot of like film timelines. So I really didn't know also like how much content we needed and what to get. So I kind of just like was like, I'm diving into this whole process and trying. Yeah. Yeah.
For this project in particular, did you have like a set location that you knew you wanted to film?
So the kind of like cinder blocks behind Shireen, that was actually at Soundbite Studio in LA. We took a trip down to LA, start of the summer to film 3 different projects. And those films are also complete, the other 2 that we did. With Shireen's, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. I was like, we're just gonna film a bunch of stuff in your costume to have another scene of the film. That was actually shot at Point Pinole. I love that park. I walk my dog there. So I just been spending more time outside and I was like, ooh, these little like pockets and things. So a lot of that piece was just inspired by me being at this park like every week and being like, oh, I need a stage. Where am I going to present something? Where am I going to film something? So other film projects, yeah, have happened in studio spaces, you know, that we've had the accessibility for and the lighting for. Outdoor shoots are a whole nother challenge because of sunlight, especially with Shireen's film. I was hoping for like a misty, foggy day, you know, so it'd be super moody, but of course we're not going to throw a fog machine out there. So we had to work with the lighting. Color correcting does wonders because we shot in RAW. So we were able to kind of crunch that up and play with that. So yeah, that's kind of where we get inspiration from with like different spaces and different shoot locations. Yeah.
Does anyone on Zoom have questions? Just shout them out.
Zoom questions, throw them.
Well, then we'll move on.
Thank
to
you
our-
all.
our
Yeah, thank you.
next Panelist, and you will be back up eventually. Great. Okay, Krista, why don't you give us your spiel?
Okay. So again, my spiel is I started out at San Francisco State as a costume designer for the theater. I originally wanted to become a makeup artist. I sort of fell into it in the theater. I, in high school, didn't make one of the plays that I auditioned for. And it was going to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I wanted to make sure that I got on that no matter what. So I ended up doing lights and ended up doing makeup for it as well. They needed some special effects makeup, and my teacher taught me how to do basic cotton and latex stuff. And then I saw things like Pan's Labyrinth and shows like Face Off and realized that this could actually be a career that I could do. So going into state, I wanted to do something involved with makeup. And the theater department had a costumes / makeup program, though makeup wasn't involved in it. But it really taught me how to design to character and not necessarily designing just to aesthetic in general. So really being able to tell a story through the medium of hair and makeup or special effects. So that helped a lot. And then after graduating, I went to a makeup school up in San Francisco called Blush. And shortly after graduating that, I moved back down to Los Angeles because this is where I'm originally from, and have just been working in film, TV, new media, kind of anything that I can do in terms of makeup. I have also taught a little bit at a school called Cinema Makeup School doing prosthetics. And yeah, I just really do whatever I can. I don't really have a preference of whether, I like beauty or effects more. I think they both have their values, and I again like finding the characters within those two mediums. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I don't really know where to go from there in my spiel.
Yeah, let's get some questions if we have any. Yeah. Can we see some of your work?
Oh yeah, of course. Here, I'll put the link to my website
Okay.
in the Zoom. And that has photos, and there's also like a video page that has some like behind the scenes videos and just like anything that's available in the new media space is I try to put it up there, unless they take it off, which can sometimes happen.
Okay.
I think I just recently updated that, so hopefully.
This looks great.
Yeah. So I kind of do a little bit of everything. I do regular makeup, special effects. Again, I have a background in costumes, so I do some costumes and fabrication as well as creating prosthetics. So taking it from the life casting process through sculpture, through physically making the prosthetic itself.
I'm just gonna scroll through a couple of these if people want
Yeah,
to
of course.
shout out questions while we're at it. There was a question in the chat.
What was one of the most challenging costumes you designed? Well, in terms of costumes, one that stands out to me that happened at State, we were doing a production of Spring Awakening, and our director wanted, well, there's a line in one of the songs that says, "And those breasts, I mean, God, please just let those apples fall." And so one of the things I had to design was a large-breasted woman who had apples in her chest, and she had to like rip open her shirt, and then all of these apples like fall out. So that was a fun thing to design to go with the logistics of all of that. So that was a fun one. And yeah, in my portfolio, I have everything sort of like separated. That way, if someone is looking for, something in particular, like just character work or just prosthetics work, they don't have to scroll through, a bunch of pretty faces, I can just send them one direct thing. So that's why I have this all set up like this. Yeah, I've done a lot of gore. Lots of bloody stuff.
What was one of your favorite things to do?
I really like creating alien babes, as I call them. There's a few up at the very top, but I like doing sort of like weird, pretty aliens because they kind of incorporate everything. They have like body painting. There's usually some like beauty makeup and prosthetics. And that one where it had like a bunch of aliens was for one of the nocturnal events, which was kind of fun.
What was
Yeah,
one
each
of
project's
your,
very different, so.
what was one of your like favorite gigs or like the most rewarding ones that you've ever participated in?
Oh, the most rewarding one. Well, I just recently did a project called The Book of Queer, and it's a show that's going to come out on Discovery Plus and TLC, and it is sort of a retelling of queer history through the lens of queer people, and in a lens that's a little bit lighter and more, enjoyable. Most of the time when you hear of queer history, it's like, and then tragedy happens. And so they didn't really want to, put it in that sort of lens. So it's a lot of fun makeup. It's all anachronistic sort of styling and makeup wise, but then telling the true history of these people from a gay historian who sort of put this all together. And there's like musical numbers at the end of each episode, and it was just a lot of fun, and it was a bit of a challenging thing to create itself because we were filming multiple episodes per day. So there was a lot of, and just a small amount of actors playing multiple characters. So it was a lot of logistical nightmares. But at the end of it, like looking at like the trailer and all of that, it's really, I don't know, it's rewarding.
People who are interested in this line of work, how do you recommend getting started or preparing yourself for that?
If I could have, if Kate, you can repeat that.
Yeah, for people that want to be in this line of work, how do you how would you suggest preparing them or getting them started?
So there's multiple avenues that you can take. You don't necessarily need to go to school. In California, at least, you don't need an esthetician's license to just perform makeup. I mean, you have to be able to like do haircuts and other services and stuff like that. But you can be self-taught and do this job just fine. I really appreciated my education at State for things like script breakdowns and like learning, like creating towards a character and things like that. Those little set of skills they don't really teach in makeup school in general. And then in makeup school, I learned a lot about things like sanitation and just like the practicality, of like the actual techniques of things. But a lot of that stuff you can learn online. You do have to be a little bit more careful about who you are learning these things from because there is a lot of misinformation online, especially with special effects. A lot of YouTubers who do special effects do not do them properly, and it's a little painful to watch sometimes. So you want to be able to, sort of check who you're watching to see if they're doing things properly. There are a bunch of makeup schools that you can go to. Some of them are pricey. But what I say for makeup schools is that you really are paying for getting to know your peers, because usually the people that you are in school with are your first connections to the industry, either at your teachers or your fellow students, things like that. They're going to be your connections to getting more and more work, and of course learning things in the proper way. There are a few online educational courses that you can learn from. Specifically for special effects, there's the Stan Winston School, which is an online program where you pay a like monthly fee, but they have hundreds of videos of things like making prosthetics to life casting to hair punching, like foam fabrication, literally anything you can kind of think of. They have some really good working professionals doing online education for that. And then you can also assist people. So that's one way that I kind of started out. Before I went to makeup school, I was assisting an artist in the Bay Area. She just did beauty, but I learned a lot in terms of like how to behave on set and, you know, how to pack your kits, things like that. And really assisting is, I would say, the best way to prepare yourself for the industry, because you do learn the little nuances of actually being able to work and like doing it in the work environment. And for me, doing things is the best way that I learned, doing things and making mistakes. And being able to see someone also doing that is also very educational as well. So you just have to kind of like be observant and take everything in on every single job.
Thank you. Any questions on Zoom?
I actually have one. Just
Yes.
I'm super curious about kind of what your creative process is like, and I'm sure it varies kind of from job to job. But when you start off doing something with special effects, do you have like a design? Do you kind of figure it out as you go? I'm just kind of curious how you get from like a blank canvas to the final product.
Yeah, so it really starts with the script. I read through the script and try to and talk to the director or the writer to find like the little nuances of each character. Then I usually will go to like my Pinterest board, or you know, it depends on what kind of look it is. If it's a makeup look, just like a regular beauty makeup look, I'll look toward the era in which it's supposed to be in, what their, you know, social economic like status is, really just lending things to tell the character before the character can actually like open their mouth and tell you who they are. For things like injuries, it's a lot of looking at real injuries, which is not the most fun to do, but you have to be able to create injuries that look realistic. If you're looking at, say, a makeup that's done of a specific thing, that already in itself, you know, it already is through a lens of makeup, so little things will be different. And then if you're trying to copy that, that will even, you know, get farther away from what it properly looks like. So I'm sure I have my own FBI agent that's looking at my Google and all of that because of the horrible things that I have Google searched and have saved in my Dropbox folder. But I just watch puppies and kitties afterwards and go on my day. And then for things like creature effects and other things like that, it is a mix depending on the character. I like to look at where the character is coming from, you know, what vibe the character is giving off. If it's like a creature, I'll pull things like color and texture from other creatures that exist in the real world. And it's always good to have some sort of real reference, because then it grounds it into reality and makes it a little bit more believable to the viewer. And it's not just like some random colors and dots and all of that. It just grounds it a little bit more. So yeah.
Do you prefer film or theater, and what makes them different in terms of being a makeup artist and visual effects artist?
That's hard because I really love theater. It's kind of where I started everything, and there's nothing like having the satisfaction of feeling the energy within the theater. I remember on the first night of my senior like play was Spring Awakening, and in it we had some of the adult characters wearing these stilts that sort of were supposed to look like chairs, because that was like a theme throughout the production that we had was these chairs representing the children. And the actor who first comes out in them was already 6'5". So with added about 6 inches of stilts, he was like well over 7 feet. And hearing the audience gasp when that happened was very, very satisfying. You sort of get that on set because, you know, you do have people who are watching and like seeing like either the blood effect that you're doing or the creature that comes out. But it is a little bit more fragmented because unlike in theater, you're sort of seeing all the behind the scene bits. So it's a little less of a magic trick than like actually like seeing it on film or like seeing it in a theater setting. And film is definitely a lot more complicated, I would say. It doesn't run as smooth as I would say some of my theater experiences have. And that's just the nature of theater because you know, you're in it and you're rehearsing it for months and months and months beforehand. And then on the day is, you know, everyone's sort of just, you know, have muscle memory of it. Whereas with film, a lot of the times I don't really know much going into it. I will know bits and pieces, or I don't know like the full scope of things, or sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing when I go on set. I'm just hired for a day and then I come in and I figure out what's happening. So yeah, I like them both, but film can be a little bit more fragmented, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Last call for questions, and then we'll move to our next panelist. Okay, awesome. Colette, if you want to come up, you want your, yes. That's not.
Great. Hi, my name is Colette Bernard. I'm actually take my mask off too, because it's gonna give me a carpet burn otherwise. All right. So my name is Colette Bernard. I am a visual artist and content creator, and I want to talk with you guys today about my relationship with recording my process, creating content online, and what that looks like for me as a visual artist, and how I have used my relationship with the internet to further my career, my relationship with my art, and all that jazz. So I just graduated from Pratt Institute about a year ago. I have been making videos online for quite a while now, and I'm going to kind of go through the storyline of how everything has come to today for me. Here's some of the brands that I've worked with in the past year. And it's been really interesting as an artist working with corporate brands and kind of figuring out my voice through that and what I'm comfortable with, and figuring out in general, like, 1 second, they're closing the door. You know, I think that like using social media for showing my art has opened this this door for me in the entertainment industry that involves brands and things like that that I originally had never really thought about, especially like with influencer culture today. I've had to really ask myself, like, where do I draw the line as a creative for like what I'm comfortable with or what my online presence looks like. And I think that, you know, compared to a lot of my other friends on the internet, it's like one more notch on top of the already like social responsibility that I feel as someone with a platform online. Is like, you know, not only am I cautious about like who I work with, but also like, what does this mean for my artistic process? So that being said, I think that we should start with a little brief history of like internet and influencer culture. You know, social media really started popping off around the mid 2000s. You know, from chat rooms to turning into Instagram. Whenever I was around like the 7th grade, I was obsessed with Instagram because I loved taking pictures of things. And that was really when I started to become super involved with the idea of a persona or making content. And, you know, as a 12-year-old girl, I had no clue what I was doing. I just was like, this is fun. And I'm just, you know, it was almost like playing Barbies on the internet where I'm just goofing around, taking photos of things. And I didn't really acknowledge that as like a big part of my artistic process until more recently, whenever I started realizing how many years of my life I've invested into these platforms, which I do want to make a disclaimer. Boo Mark Zuckerberg, boo Jeff Bezos, all these people who own these mega giant platforms, you know, but at the same time, there are so many things that have been opened up to me because of my literacy involving these platforms. And I think that, you know, under capitalism, it's one more tool for us to use as a survival skill when it comes to being in the workforce of the creative industry, you know? So, you know, when social media became a thing and people started taking it more seriously, there's also this discourse in the fine arts world of, well, what does this mean for art? You know, and it ranges anywhere from people saying this is the worst thing to happen to fine art because now there's more trends when it comes to the fine art world. There's more copycat, there's more staleness or, you know, very much Hollywood-esque creations going on. But my response to that is I think that's a really shallow way of looking at what the internet can be. And as someone who grew up on the internet, I see it as a community of people that you can become friends with and have contacts with, whether you have a profile of 10 followers or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. I was invited here today by Kate, who follows me on TikTok, you know? So, you know, I think the internet can be a really beautiful place if you choose to look at it that way. Of course, everything has its negative sides to it, but overall, I really want to emphasize how community is so beautiful for the arts online. And that being said, I want to talk about some of the people that I consider like the founding fathers of art Instagram. And these are people who I've looked up to for a long time. This is Dan Lamb. She's a sculptor. She's based out of Dallas, Texas. And I really love her work. You may recognize it. It's very drippy. She works with resin, foam, and she has been practicing for years now on her own and has been independent thanks to Instagram. Absolutely love her work. It explores the concept of self-image, the body, grotesqueness, and beauty. Sari Shryak, she is a painter located in Austin, Texas. She explores nostalgia, color, and these disco balls of hers are really blowing up right now. There's a lot of copycats of her work, to be totally honest, but she welcomes it. She always says, you know, if I paint something, like, feel free to try it. I think that's really sweet of her. And, you know, here's part of her nostalgic series on the right. You know, the baby bottle pop, the eyelash stuff, the Hubba Bubba, and she paints all the time. It is insane. She is posting her artwork almost every single day. She is painting almost every single day. It's very admirable how crazy of a work ethic she has, and she comes from really humble beginnings, and she is an open book about how she has built her platform for herself and really emphasizes consistency and engaging with community. And, you know, she's always sharing little tips and tricks and how she does what she does. And I really respect that, especially in a world of gatekeeping, you know. Then there's Jen Stark. Jen is a great example of someone who has a very secure like brand identity with her art. And I hate calling it that because I don't think that fine arts and like commercial lingo, like branding, like always mesh together. I think to call Jen's work like a brand is like not exactly a service to the work, but for lack of a better word, I think that the cohesiveness of what she creates has allowed her
to explore so many new mediums with something that is very, I don't want to say simple, but not exactly super complex at the same time. So she'll take her drawings and she'll create metal sculptures out of them. She'll create these immersive installations where you can like touch the tiles on the wall and they move, and there's projectors involved. And it's very fascinating how she takes something and creates it into something new. And then there's Amanda Oleander, and she is an illustrator in Los Angeles, California. And she draws pictures based on everyday interactions that are special to her and unique to her experience as a woman, but also just like recently she became a mother. So it's been really interesting watching her illustrations change from being about her being a young woman who was clubbing every night, not really taking care of herself, to finding the love of her life and having a child recently. And she's very, very raw. And I feel like her images have this level of detail to them that are just really appealing, especially when you go on her profile on Instagram. It's just every photo is one of her drawings. And something that she taught me was this idea of consistency being super important, not only for the sake of content, but for your own relationship with your work. So she draws 100 series of drawings at a time, every like 3 times a year. So she'll do like 300 drawings a year, and she always has something new to post like every other day. And I've listened to some of her podcasts where she just emphasizes the concept of, you know, not only does like applying yourself to these types of challenges help you establish a presence online and everything, but also like it's a way to connect with your work and not boil it down to I'm doing this for content, you know? And I think that's something really important to talk about when it comes to social media. Is it's not about clicks or you know, becoming a walking advertisement, but there are ways that you have to find a boundary and a balance to be able to work in this line of the arts, because it can start to feel a little tricky. Oh, before I move on, I want to point out something, that these 4 women are people that I really look up to and respect, and all of them have a very same message of the reason why social media can be such a good tool. It's not just about community or consistency or having a place to show your work. It's also that you are your own representative. All of these women have had opportunities that have come their way because of their presence online, that they have organically grown, and they don't need a gallery representative. They don't need some person who's taking 60% of their earnings. They all have their own online shop. They all have their own partners that they've chosen to work with over time, but they have grown their work because of their own audience. And that level of loyalty is so fascinating and interesting. And I think it's great because there are so many galleries out there that take advantage of amazing artists, and hearing that perspective of you can do it alone, you know, was very inspiring to me. And it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. So moving forward, talking about my own art, I've always been really interested in the internet for years. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, I grew up being addicted to Webkinz. That was my bread and butter, or going into random chat rooms and talking to people. I loved that growing up. And especially as someone who was born and raised in the South, the internet was an escape room for me. It was somewhere where I could talk to people and relate to people that I could not find anywhere else in my community, in my day-to-day life. And I really cherished my relationship with the internet because of that. This is a piece I did my sophomore year of college, where I created these, the cursor and the loading wheel of death, and you can spin that wheel. This is supposed to be a GIF, but I don't know why it's not working. This wheel spins over here, and you can push the cursor, and then you can't see it in this photo, but there are plenty of buildings next to it that are like 3 or 4 stories high. So you could look down and watch people pushing it, and it looks like you were on like a desktop of some sort. And this was like one of my first times working with like the public on a piece and deciding to leave something of mine out in the open and just see what happens. And I guess for context, I went to Pratt's upstate campus in upstate New York, and then I finished at the Brooklyn campus. Very two different experiences, but it was a place where I learned so much about skill and how to create things and then apply concept later. So this was one of the first times that I got to use my fabrication skills to create something involving concept as well. And it was like a very successful moment for me at Pratt. I've also really been interested in costumes and the act of like performance involving sculpture and creating things to perform with. So for Pride, I made these costumes. I was like the Instagram like button, and these were great because they were made out of foam and I could like fan people. We were in New Orleans and it was super hot. And then on the right, that was New York City Pride in 2018, and I was Mother Gacher. And I had the rake in my hand, and if I ever got lost in the crowd, I could just like wave it around and my friends would find me. And it was really fun. I was practically naked, you know, but wearing the garden never gets old. I still put it on. I have it in my room every now and then. And whenever I was a junior at Pratt, I met Danny Cole, who is a friend of mine that I have a great working relationship with. And I'd originally met him to help him create something for one of his shows, because fabrication was my like #1 plan post-graduation. I enjoy helping other artists make their art, and I have like a special interest for like fabrication processes, you know, so I'm like an endless pit of information on how to make something. And at one point, Danny was like, I don't understand why you have this mindset that because you're a student, you can't start your career yet. And it sounds so simple, but it was just like my brain exploded in that moment, because I was like, I don't know why I do that either. I don't know why I keep waiting to take myself seriously whenever I can just start today. And so I did. And I started thinking about my relationship with social media and how I could maybe start taking myself seriously in baby steps. And I didn't approach social media with the idea of like, I want to get big, I want to have an audience or anything. I just thought this can be like a gallery for me, and I should maybe just consider using this as a tool. And I came up with this policy in my head of, I am no longer going to post selfies. If I am online, I am pictured with my art, because if, as the artist, I have that power to control my persona and how I am viewed on social media, then I immediately saw the pattern of like, if I post a picture of myself, everybody that I know is interacting with it. But then if I post a picture of just my artwork, there was no connection being made that this is something that I made. And I wanted to, you know, really start thinking about that. And after about a year of enforcing that like policy of I will only post my work, and if I happen to be there, I have to be with the work, it really started paying off. And even just like my peers from high school or whatever, seeing me as a working artist started changing, and I found that to be really inspiring. Danny went on to sell millions of dollars worth of NFTs in the past year. And, you know, they're a little controversial, but I do think that it is admirable that this is somebody who told me, you know, it's never like, there's never going to be a right time. You just have to start making stuff and see what happens. And I really appreciated that. And a few months after I met Danny, and I thought, okay, I need to start taking myself more seriously and post my work and not just sit on it and let it sit in a Google Drive folder for the rest of my life. I posted this performance art piece that I created, which is titled The Burden, where I carried this birth control container around me all around New York City. And I made like a montage of me dragging it around and it being a big pain in the ass on me, you know, kind of as a visual metaphor for the way that women have to carry the burden of birth control. Well, people who take birth control, sorry. And within a day of posting it, I maybe had 1,000 followers, people from high school, whatever, friends and family. I guess I just used the right hashtags, and I thought I was getting pranked because I would open the Instagram app and it would just crash immediately. So I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening. Maybe someone bought me fake followers or something. I don't know, as a prank. No, I wake up to emails from people saying, hey, can I get this in my show in the next month, or can I interview about this piece? And I'm thinking, what the hell's happening? You know, Feminist on Instagram, who I believe they have like 8 million followers, had reposted my video and tagged me. And this was just like insane for me, because I immediately was seeing like results to taking myself online a little, just simply putting myself out there. It was just extremely rewarding seeing like, oh my God, it's happening. Like I'm getting some traction, like that's pretty cool. And to this day, it'll every now and then flare up and someone will post it and it'll start circulating and everything. And that's interesting and beneficial and everything, but it was so rewarding to me that it actually resonated with people. I was like so shook, because suddenly I'm getting messages from people from Portugal telling me their story about how this has affected them, or my comment section is filled with people debating on if this is a real issue or not. And you know, it'll be right beneath a comment of someone saying that birth control almost killed them. And I was just like so happy that I finally made something where I could immediately see people talking and getting something from it and being able to relate or disagree. And either way, I was happy with that type of discourse. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. You know, I also received death threats over this. So two sides to every coin. Then, you know, like 15 seconds of fame is over, whatever. And I'm still a junior at Pratt. So I go home for winter break, and I'd emailed the Children's Museum to see if I could do a mural for them, and they said yes. So that was another way that I got to engage with community in college. As you know, kids would walk by me all the time asking what I'm doing, and I would just get to educate them on, I'm an artist, this is what I do, you know. And in a way, I was even just solidifying it within myself that I am an artist and this is what I'm doing and this is real. I love this picture on the right of the kid kissing the little face. This video was sent to me, and it was just very heartwarming. Then the pandemic hits, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? You know, I'm a junior at Pratt. I lost my campus job. Basically everything was ripped out from under me. Suddenly I had to move back in with my parents across the country. All of my belongings are stuck in the dorms. I didn't get access to them for another year. And I'm kind of just stuck with all I have is a paintbrush. You know, I can no longer be a sculptor because I don't have the access to those kinds of facilities. And I started taking on doing murals and just painting as much as I could, because it was the most accessible thing that I had to me. And I just started asking random people in town if I could use their space or whatever. And, you know, I didn't charge anything for these. It was just, I just need to make something and get out of the house and be in the sun. And, you know, when I lost my job because of the pandemic, I immediately just frantically was like, I need to figure something out. And I've always been interested in doing some sort of online store, because I see all these artists that I look up to selling something online. And I think I could do that too. And people were asking, how can I support you? Can I get a print of the birth control piece? And I'm thinking, I have nothing to share with you, because the sculpture itself, you know, it's massive. I can't break it up into a million pieces and give it to you. So I made these stickers. And within the first month, we raised like $500 for Planned Parenthood for the birth control stickers. And, you know, the gears start turning of, well, maybe doing this whole online thing like can be sustainable if I just start thinking about it through a different lens of what do I want to put out there, you know? And, you know, in the past year, so since I've graduated, I've built an audience online, and I started pivoting and rethinking, how do I want to approach things? And while I do still practice fine arts in the sense that, you know, I am still painting and everything, I started finding a lot of joy in just creating videos talking about art. And that has resulted in me acquiring a following. And a lot of my pages revolve around art discourse. So, you know, we'll talk about commentary involving like a lot of, there's always something trending in the media about art theory. And a lot of it sometimes can be clickbait about like, you know, like what is art, or, you know, this artist used this crazy material. What do you think? You know, but a lot of people don't have access to art discourse in an educational setting. So it's been interesting for me on my end as someone who had the privilege of going to such a great art school to see that there is a market for people who want to learn about art but don't have access to it anywhere else in the world, you know? So I started making videos just talking about like, well, you can think this thing, there's this theory, there's this thing that happened in art history, how do we feel about it? And I started making art history videos and art theory videos from a very like approachable standpoint of, I'm not going to use these big words that scare people away, and I'm not going to reference things without explaining them. And as a result, I have built a community of people who like to share and talk about art, and my comment section is very welcoming. And it has this mutual handshake relationship where it's like, I can now talk about my own art and have supporters for that, but also I don't have to milk everything I do dry because I feel the need as an artist to talk about my opinions about art in general. So, you know, when you look at some of the artists, like I mentioned, Amanda Oleander, who does the 100-day drawing challenge, that is exhausting on my end. I can't do that. I can barely even finish like a week. But if you ask me to post every day about art theory, I can talk for days, you know? So I found this interesting like relationship with being a content creator where I was like, I'm still being an artist every day. I don't feel like I'm some Hollywood figure, you know, I'm, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I mean, I feel like I'm still being an artist. And the reason why I get really insecure about that topic is because, you know, this is still happening whenever I'm a senior at Pratt, and I'm having professors who are having very mixed reactions to everything. I'm having some professors say, like, this is going to ruin your career. Like, it's going to give you 15 seconds of fame. You're going to get spoiled. Like, something's going to happen, whatever. Or on the flip side, it's people saying like, do anything and just see what happens. And, you know, that's the path that I went on. And another popular series that I have is talking about public art. And I just enjoy this as a, you know, as a person. It's just a topic I find really interesting. And it's so fun sharing things with people, especially living in New York City, being able to say like, here's places you can visit. And then I'll get tagged in videos of people being like, I came here because this person showed me it existed. And I thought that was really interesting and fun. And, you know, it encourages discussion, it encourages travel. And especially during the lockdown, I think people really loved looking at online videos about things like that because you are almost living vicariously through the things that I would go and show that you can maybe come visit when things are normal, you know? And then another way that I engage with my community that is another just special interest of mine is art mail. So I opened up a PO box and people can send me things from all over and I'll unbox it on camera, or I'm currently working on a YouTube video because I recently got like a huge influx of packages. It would just be impossible for me to make videos about it all day. But it's been really fun just hearing what people have to share with me, and I should send them something in return as well. And yeah, it's been really fun. It's kind of like having a pen pal. And yeah, so, you know, I start thinking about like the sustainability aspect of like, well, how can I do content creation and stay true to my art? And what do I want to do? Because Pratt in a lot of ways love it, but also have a hate relationship with it too. Pratt sucked me dry of a lot of my interests rather than like what I was told I was supposed to do. So, you know, I'm in the sculpture program and it's almost like forbidden to like dabble in other things, but I have this interest in graphic design, in fashion, and in sculpture. So I'm like in this love triangle of how do I balance all of this? And I start designing apparel, and I made these scarves, and They, you know, help me sustain being a full-time artist and having something to offer and scratch that itch in me to make and design things. And, you know, because some people will make paintings and then they'll have prints of that. And it's a way for, you know, you make the painting once and then you can sell a million prints, and then that can help you just have a sustainable living. So this is kind of my version of doing that, but with like my designs and everything. And I'm doing all of this while it's my senior year of college. And I'm working on my thesis, and I use the ceramic 3D printer. And that by itself was such a fascinating process that I love sharing it on my TikTok all the time of like, today I learned this, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm playing with. And here was the outcome for those. These are figures based off of crawfish mounds from South Louisiana. It's like the little homes that crawfish dig into the mud. And this was the final outcome. So this was my thesis. And then this article came out around the same time that I was interviewed for with the New York Times, the boom and bust of TikTok artists. And man, this title really like irked me, because I was like, I am going to show that I can do something with this because I feel the momentum, and I love what I do. I love the community that I'm a part of. I love sharing my videos. I love seeing other people's videos. At this point, I've met so many artists through the platform, and I have so many friends all around the world. And then, you know, this article comes out, and, you know, I know that they're playing devil's advocate in the whole article about like, what does it mean to be an artist online? But yeah, I kind of was like, this is some fire that I needed in me to be like, I will do good, you know? A few months after that article came out, basically being like, will artists be able to sustain this? I had this ultra mega viral design of mine, kind of tapping into a lot of my Southern leftist rage about science and how it's viewed in conservative communities. I made this t-shirt design, and it sold very well. And I was so happy because it felt like I'd achieved this thing that I was working towards for so long, of like, I want to share my art. I want to make an impact on other people. I want to stay true to my own beliefs while doing that. And something as goofy as this design did so well. And it was so rewarding. And I used that money to fund my first solo art show. And in this moment, I was like, I am channeling the energy of those 4 women that I've looked up to for years now about, I'm going to do it myself. I don't need a gallery. I don't need the approval of some blue chip gallery. I'm going to just figure it out, because essentially all that a gallery show is a party. And, you know, there's pictures of people wearing it. And here is the work that I made that summer after graduating. This is from my show Thumbs Up. I used neon around the paintings to kind of channel my sculptural side of me. And I made digital collages and painted them. And I just went hard. It took a long time, but I spent many long nights working on these paintings. They're huge. This is like 6 by 4 feet, like 50 pounds. And I'm talking about my Southern background and my relationship with the internet, and kind of tapping more into the colorfulness that I love to embody with my work, and the visual cohesiveness of that. And I just sold these paintings in an auction recently. And now this one is in LA and the other one is in Mississippi. And the big one is in Philadelphia. And it was very interesting for me because this was the first time that I got to experience my community in real life. So, you know, I post the process videos of me working on these paintings, my concept, how's it going, what's up, you know, and I post the RSVP in my bio, and slowly but surely over a few months of showing my process and everything, about 300 people showed up. And it was a very like it takes a village situation we kind of talked about that with your design of, relying on people already in your community to make something happen. So the property that this was at is a friend of mine who's a little bit older than all of us, who I had met in the neighborhood in New York, and he bought this little courtyard in the 80s. And I said, if I clean it up for you, can I have a show there? And we did. We got drink sponsors. We had a live band play. It was friends of mine that, a friend of mine from Louisiana flew all the way to come play. Another band that I knew in New York City came and played. I had friends that I had met through Danny and along the way of my own creative journey that offered to help me manage the event and everything. And it was seamless. It was awesome. I have no complaints. It was amazing. It was just a dream. And as cheesy as this graphic is, what I'm getting at is that, I was taught in art school that being an artist means, that goalpost is just, well, you just make art and you live off of it. And that's what it means to be an artist. And I don't think that's true. At least in my experience of the past 2.5 years of doing this on my own, is it's also figuring out who your audience is and why do you do this and what do you want to do rather than what works. Or even if something works, do you still want to add to it and build something, or is it worth letting go of? Or, making the money right, learning skills involving things that you maybe don't even care about, but you have to make the ship sail, and in the end of it coming out, and like, that's what makes you an artist is, are you flexible? Can you work with your community? What do you want to do? What does being an artist actually look like? Rather than just the final outcome of, well, I make art every day, and to come full circle, here I am with Jen and Dan. Dan has my birth control sculpture in her home. And I met Jen for the first time a few months ago. I'm still working on Sari and Amanda, but I would love to meet them one day. So that's it.
So really few questions. I want to make sure our last panelist has time. So yes, thank you. Yeah, Aisha, if you want to go ahead and give us your spiel.
Hi. Yeah, sure. So I was so engaged, Colette, so I don't have any PowerPoint or visuals prepared. I had sent a video to Kate, which showed a bit earlier, but my name is Aisha. Like I mentioned, I'm a harpist based out of the Bay Area. But in addition to being a harpist and, kind of sustaining off of sharing music with people in weddings and special events and, special moments in their life, I also work in tech. And so I've been really fortunate that over the past couple of years, I've been able to sustain a career in tech that's very strategic and very technical and very kind of business oriented, while also being able to express myself in something that's very qualitative and very ethereal and very, very creative. So I've been able to kind of, sustain on both. And so a little bit about my background, my process is that I actually grew up in a couple different countries. So my parents moved around a lot while I was growing up. And so as a family, we moved too. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but that meant that musically I got exposed to a lot of different people and a lot of different methods and a lot of different studies and cultures. So I had the benefit of learning how to play the harp from teachers in Germany, in China, and in Singapore. And then they had trained with, teachers in Japan, in Paris, in South Africa. So it was quite like a multi kind of cultural upbringing. But what that ultimately taught me was to kind of how to create my own methods and how to create my own techniques and find what works for me and to find that space where I could exist as an artist. And so, one of the things that kind of got me into music and into art was, I always felt for me it was something, weirdly enough, being like a performing artist, I always felt like it was something very close to me and very private. like I love playing. I couldn't practice enough growing up, but I hated performing like so much. So even thinking about performing, my hands sweat, and I was like, why can't I just play at home? And my younger sister now is an opera singer, and she and I grew up together, and she would be singing and or playing the oboe, and I would be accompanying her, and we'd be playing together, and I'd just be like content, like 4 hours a day, just practicing and playing. And ultimately, when I continued to study music and wrote my own music and just kind of played it for myself and in small concerts for my friends, it was ultimately until one of my friends begged me to play at her wedding. And I was like, but there's going to be people there. Like, you know how I feel about this. And so, but she ended up just, really kind of really persistent and just asked me to play for her. And it was at that point that I was like, okay, so this isn't so bad. But also, it was such a moment for me to be able to share something that was so close to me and so personal, and so it like is so indicative of kind of who I was and what I was inside, to kind of share that with others, not just in a look at this way, but I can make something that makes you happy and that brings you emotion and that brings you joy and that makes you feel happy. And then from then on, I was like, oh, I really, really liked playing for her wedding. Maybe I can play for other friends' weddings too. And from there, it kind of took off and spun into a business. And last year, I ended up playing at 70 weddings. So it was almost every weekend, some evenings, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a weekend. But it brings me so much happiness to be able to think about, what people feel like when they're getting married, or when they're mourning the loss of a loved one, or when they're celebrating the birth of a child, or whatever kind of major milestones, and how the music that I can create and that I can design and cultivate for them will help them make that experience just that much more magical and that much more real and memorable for them. So it's something very special to me to be able to do now. And it, the biggest thing, it was such a lesson too, because for me, the biggest thing holding me back was me. Like I had all the training, I had the passion, and ultimately it was just being afraid of being able to share what I had with the world and what I wanted to do. But once I was able to get out there, it was just something where I was like, I want to create more things. I want to write my own arrangements. I want to do all these things and take on more events and share this with as many people as I can. And so, finding that ability and finding that courage has made my life, not just even as an artist, but just as a person, that much more richer and that much more truthful and authentic to myself. So I'm very fortunate to be able to have that and to do that. And I ultimately think it's made me a better person kind of across the board too. And I'm very fortunate that I have this ability to have this creative outlet, but I can still balance kind of, life in tech. And so recently I've been able to blend those worlds by playing in orchestras in the tech world, and by bringing kind of focus and creativity to some of the tech work that I do. And so it's kind of been my experience and the way that I've been able to kind of blend my worlds together. So I know it's a very, very short spiel, and but happy to answer any questions if people want to know more or are curious about my journey.
Yeah, questions?
Yeah, is there a favorite song that you started off playing when you were younger that you continued playing into your adulthood?
A favorite song that you started off younger and have continued playing?
A favorite song? That's such a good question. I think my favorite songs have they change, and I've started writing my own arrangements for weddings and for events too. And sometimes I'll be on a run or I'll be on the radio and I'll hear a song and think, I can write an arrangement of that. So like the inspiration to do that kind of strikes me. There are definitely some songs, especially some Celtic songs. I started off playing more in the Celtic tradition, that remind me of like certain moments in growing up or my childhood, that I always kind of come back to, or I know that I channel in a way that's different from other pieces that I do. But most recently, what I've done in some of the more recent work, has everyone seen Bridgerton? Heard of Bridgerton? Right. Okay, great. So there was a lot of harps featured in the second season, and so like one of the pinnacle pieces of music that Bridgerton had in one of these episodes was Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. And so like immediately after seeing that, I was like, I gotta write a harp arrangement of that. And so that's been kind of my favorite thing to play, because it is such a piece that I never would have thought that I would ever play on harp. I'd never liked it listening to it. And then when I heard a cover of it, that's kind of been the thing I've been playing a lot this past week. I'm also, so I'm half Pakistani as well. So I'm mixed race. My mom is Ukrainian and my dad is Pakistani. And so I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood movies, which is a blending of story and visual art and choreography and music. And a lot of the pieces from my childhood were from Bollywood movies. And so I've been able to, listen to them and write harp arrangements of them too, and kind of express myself that way. And it's been really, really fun to do that and to kind of stretch the limits of what I think might sound good on harp. And what, like, would you ever think Despacito sounds good on harp? Turns out it does, because if you play it right, it has kind of acoustic guitar-y kind of feels, but if you play it a little slower, it is a little like suave, a little more romantic, a little more sensual. So I like thinking about stretching the bounds of what I'm able to do musically and like favorite pieces like that. My parents also have like favorite pieces that I've played. I used to play Gabriel's oboe a lot with my sister. I used to accompany her to like a lot of different opera pieces too. So those are all very special to me. Good question.
How'd you get into the harp? Like, why'd you pick that instrument? It's not usually one to easily carry places or work with.
Yeah, good, really good question. So the truth is, up until about last year, I honestly didn't know. When I was, about 3, my parents said, okay, well, what instrument do you want to play? And I said, I want to play the harp. And I had no idea how I had heard of that or where I had seen it or what. So it was just kind of this mystery growing up. But, thinking about the harp, I always had a vision of, little kid me kind of sitting at the base of a harp, like right down there and kind of like strumming like this, right? And I had no idea where that image kind of came from. And then last year during pandemic, my husband and I were doing a Disney movie marathon. And one of the movies we watched was the Aristocats. Has anyone seen Aristocats here? The Disney movie about the 3 cats? Yeah, okay. So there's a song in the Disney movie, The Aristocats, called Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. And it's just like jazzy, magical, colorful montage of music and jazz and dissonance and harmonies. And it's such a cool piece musically. But there's a visual there of the mama cat, Duchess, in the middle of the song, kind of climbing up onto this like old harp that has all its strings lost, like a cracked soundboard and all that. And she starts to sing and kind of paw at the harp like this. And it was like something in my brain clicked where I was like, I think that was the start of my harp journey, where as a child I had seen this movie and something clicked with the mama cat and the harp, and I saw me in that, or I saw a future in that, or something spoke to me. And so I think that was the origins, was watching Aristocats as an impressionable child and thinking, that's what I want to do.
It's an amazing story.
But it's, for the longest time, I had no idea. I only kind of had that childhood thing to go on of like, and what I had in my head was like physically impossible to do, but how your brain kind of surrealizes some things and makes it work. So that's all I had to go on. And then when the mama cat sat there, I was like, I think that might be it. So Disney, y'all.
I have a question. So you work in tech as well. Is doing music and playing the harp something you want to do full time, or are you happy and content with doing it weekends and evenings and things like that?
I mean, I honestly feel like it feels like a full-time thing, because I'm playing every day, I'm working with clients every day, I'm practicing every day, and I almost feel like sometimes tech gives me like the strategic break from all the creativity and from the physicality of playing. But it's something that I really like, that I have these kind of 2 outlets for 2 different pieces of me. Like I studied music in college, but I also studied literature. And then in my graduate studies, I studied Chinese corporate law. So it was very, very dry, very strategic, not at all creative, but I really liked the strategy piece of it. And so I feel like if I can kind of continue to make them work and to balance them, I think that they can enrich each other. And I think, working in tech and working in strategy makes me a kind of a better business manager for myself. Like, again, it gives me the tools to think about marketing channels and about revenue and about like cost per ad and cost per gig and the different avenues that I work through. And I think that being in tech, the music and the creativity lets me think about people more and connect with the person behind the product, or can think about how something that we're doing might impact an end user. So I think that creativity makes me more empathetic, which makes me a better manager. Sorry, I have two dogs that are also very expressive. So yeah.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Cool. Okay, I want to get all of our panelists up on screen. And we'll kind of do like an open Q&A for Colette. We didn't have a question for you. We didn't have questions for you, but we will open that up now. And then any other questions for any of the panelists or all of them? Yeah, come on up. Okay, we have a question here. I'm gonna go to the other computer.
Okay, question for me from Annie says, give me 1 second. As someone, sorry, as someone who is currently in art school who wants to pursue making art as a career, I feel like I'm in a position where I feel like I'm good enough to start selling my work, but I have no idea where to start when it comes to the business side of art. Do you have any advice on how to get started with sustaining yourself financially for the work you make? It's hard for me to, so it's a great place to be thinking about this, especially if you're, about to enter the field and everything. But questions like this, honestly, are just so specific to the person that it's really hard for me to give exact advice. But like, I guess the question you have to ask yourself is what is the end goal for you, and how can you get there? Like, do you want to be an independent artist? Do you want to work in XYZ field, and how do you get there, and what do those steps look like? And when it comes to like selling your art, it depends on what it is that you're selling, but I definitely recommend listening to the podcast episode Amanda Oleander has on her podcast that's literally titled The Business of Art, because she goes into like in depth about like how to just get on your feet with things. And it's one of those things where it really just depends on what you want to do, honestly. I worked my way through college. I've built everything myself, and it is a like slowly but surely kind of process. I don't know, unless you have a full ride for everything and or have a small loan of $1 million or something, but it's a lot of trial and error. So you just have to start reverse engineering what you can from the beginning. I hope that helps. Yeah. Did anybody else have any questions for me here from my talk?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think you mentioned it at the very beginning, but or I think I've heard you talk about it before, talking about like filming the process of creating one's art. And I feel like that's something I have a really big issue with. Like, it takes me out of actually creating what I'm creating in order to make the content for other people to consume, and then to be interested in what I'm doing, like for the buy-in.
Yeah.
Which is really frustrating, because like I just want to be doing the art, but then I'm like, oh, I need to make sure this is in film, or like, or does this look good? Does this look appealing to whoever's watching? And then the dread of like, I'm going to spend so many hours editing this to also be appealing when I want to just be working on the art.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe what do you do to like kind of combat that, or like maybe enjoy the process more?
Yeah. So I really struggled with this whenever I tried to do a similar thing with like a 100-day drawing challenge. I was like, it's not even hard making the art. It's the act of filming the art is a whole art of itself, and what I did was, and what my advice would be, is to find 3 or 4 artists that you enjoy what they're doing and the way that they present themselves online. And you can quite literally take that method. Like I don't think there's any stigma around, like, a great example. I know that you're a tattoo artist, right? If you look at like a very typical tattoo artist's profile will be, there's so much content you can get out of one client, in the sense of like, think about like the wipe down videos. The tattoo is done, so you don't have to think about filming during the process. All you got to do is get that clean wipe off of, bam, look what I made, That's one idea. And then another one would be, instead of filming yourself doing the entire thing, be intentional about, okay, I'm going to film myself whenever I fill in this one little square over here. And then I can make a montage of 3 versions of that. Okay, the square, the circle, whatever, and then the final wipe down, and then that's your video, you know? So, and that's what I mean by it's important to like get inspiration from other people who have already invented the wheel for you. And I don't mean go and like copy someone's identity, obviously, but it's just, there's so many, it's kind of hard to recreate the way that so much of these things have already been done, you know, but you'll find your own voice in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How would you recommend getting out of, because I was doing that same thing, I had the same issue, I finally got past that. But then when I started like selling my work and going into different areas, it was less enjoyable. And how would you recommend getting out of that hiatus of not posting your art anymore? Because I stopped in like 6 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so burnout is like very much a problem in the content creation world just because it moves so fast, you know? And that's the thing about like media today is that it's not even like Hollywood was 10 years ago where, you know, you get a new episode every 2 weeks or something, you know. Now it's like, I want you to post every day. What's going on? Hello, hello, hello. And, you know, so when it comes to like selling something specific, for example, I think you like, and this is just like marketing basics. So it might also help you to watch some YouTube videos just about basic marketing, about things that don't even involve art, you know, and just think about how to apply that to your practice. But there's so many more things that go to selling something than just saying, hey, here's this product and you should like it and you should buy it. It's also, you know, so this was designed by the artist Lorian Stern, right? Lorian can go and be like, this is a phone case and it's cool. And everyone needs a phone case because you have a phone, you know? So like, okay, there's a sales pitch for you. Or like she can make videos saying like there's sand inside this phone case and it glows in the dark. Ooh, that's cool. Link in bio, you know, like there's so many like different ways you can approach it. And it does sometimes feel like you're just like speaking into the void sometimes. And I think the best way to avoid that is like making a literal schedule of like, I am only going to plug my art once every 3 days. Every other day than that, I'll show a process video. Or like, if you need those kinds of boundaries for yourself, then like, there are ways, like I said, that you can just like reverse engineer what is out there or like how other people are going about it. Like something that I like to do is I like to stalk other artists and go and like see what their posting habits are and be like, oh, interesting. This person will post like a throwback Thursday every Thursday of like old art they've done. So suddenly you've heard from this person and seen their previous work every week if you engage with their content often, you know? But also like remembering that people don't keep up with every move you make, you know? So like, there's no shame in like, you know, bringing things up that you may have already shared before or whatever. And I feel like on my end, the only reason why I've been able to sustain this kind of thing is because I've diversified what I'm sharing so much that it feels new to me and to the people who like consume what I'm putting out there. So it's not like I'm plugging the same like one thing every single time or that I'm just like a walking billboard. You know, it's like people want to get invested in your art because you made it, you know, you made it. They want to know how you made it. What's that process like? Like there's resources online that you can just Google that are just like 50 content ideas for artists. And then you can look at that and just see like, well, oh, this inspires me to make this type of thing, you know? So I hope that helps.
And I hear you on the creating space too, because even I'm not that much in the social media as much as you are, but just like that context switching of like, oh my God, I have to turn on my camera now. Like, how do I stay in the art too? So I think in addition to making those schedules of like this post, like actually being like, I don't have to think about that right now. I'm just going to make the thing too, I think can be really like valuable to your process as well.
Yeah.
I've experienced that.
Boundaries are like so important. And you know, like there's times where I'll just turn my phone completely off and say like, I will not doom scroll today. I will not compare myself to other artists who are already putting the work in that, because, you know, like, I feel like a lot of people will see these artists who like have this like crystal clear like foundation of who they are online. And it's like, there's hours of work that's put into that. It is not a coincidental, you know, it's very calculated. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So we talked a lot about social media and showing your work there, but for like everyone else, how do you show your work and how do you get people to see it and hire you and experience your art if it's not through social media? That's this for everyone.
Well, I'll answer at least for my profession. Um, a lot of the times I do get a lot of work through my social media. That is probably one of the biggest ways that I get people's eyes on my work. But another big thing is just through meeting people and networking with other people. So a person that I have worked with will recommend someone. Will have someone who's looking for an artist and they'll throw my name out. And so then that's another set of eyes on it. And it's important for me to have a portfolio specifically that I can show people so that they aren't scrolling through, reels of me packing my kit or, a beauty makeup if they're looking for something that's more of like a zombie makeup. So having a cohesive website to like show your work off, I think is very important, and also just looks professional. And you can find websites that you can, purchase for free. You don't have to like get specifically your domain name. You can do it through like a third-party website. And just anything that you can sort of like separate your art into one portfolio area is very helpful, I think, to getting work. And then social media is a good way of just getting new eyes and then linking it to your portfolio itself so that you can get, like both sides of it.
I can go next and kind of follow that because I feel like it's quite similar to how I kind of got my name out there, which was I, ended up setting up a website, tried to build a brand on Instagram and tried to think about, well, what are some of the things that I want to associate with me and my name and my work. And then an avenue that I kind of knew about, but then learned how to be strategic about was building partnerships with local vendors and local venues. And so now, when I started off, I had no idea kind of how to do this. And one of the venues in the Bay Area that I reached out to ask if I could rent to do a photo shoot at for me and my harp when I was trying to build out my portfolio said, oh, we just had a harpist leave the Bay Area. We need kind of a in-house harpist for weddings. Do you want to be doing that? And I was like, that's a thing you can do. And from there, I ended up building, being kind of cognizant about the impression I was making when I'd arrive at a venue and finding the venue owner, the manager, and kind of talking through them and building that relationship. And so now I think I'm partnered with something like 15, 16 different venues. And in my business, my main source of revenue here is weddings. Couples will look for the venue first and they'll book the venue first. And venues will then give them a list of professionals that they've worked with and they've partnered with in the past. And so establishing yourself through those partnerships was really, really crucial for me. And it wasn't just venues, it's photographers or videographers, officiants that you work with and you kind of build your network out that way. I've also social media has still been really important. Like I think that just in the weddings and stuff, there's a lot of hashtags and a lot of, I think, young brides and grooms that are planning their wedding based on inspiration they've seen on Instagram. So being able to kind of tap into that as well and, learn how to use hashtags, which is something I didn't know how to do until a few years ago. And figuring out what the right hashtags are and what's kind of trending and staying, on top of that has also been really, really beneficial for me.
Yeah, performing art world is tricky. I mean, everything is so word of mouth. So yeah, social media is a love and a hate in that space because it is really something that offers more eyes on things, just all the things that have been said. But I also teach, and a lot of my audience and therefore supporters and donors have come from my students because they aren't just professional dancers. They're also in the tech industry and have other jobs and things, and they're coming into movement. So I think a lot about building audience base and how to kind of branch out and continue those networks coming to see shows, especially because it's so locally based with the work I do with my company. So I'm a little bit of in-person and social media combined to get people
in the seats and in the space to see what we do.
And you only need 10 people. It's true. I mean, you know, like you don't need a huge audience as long as you have like a community of people who love and support you, like anything is possible, you know?
Great. Are there any other questions? For one or all of our panelists?
For Aisha, what was one of your most memorable performances?
Aisha, most memorable performance.
Sorry, I was muted. My most memorable performance. Okay, so I ended up performing for my let me think. Okay, so I think that there were two. One is that I ended up performing for my best friend's wedding last year. So one of the things I always do is I try and perform for my friends. That's really kind of what got me into being a wedding harpist. And it was really special to me because she ended up getting ordained and performing my wedding a few years ago. So it was really special to me to be able to play for her ceremony and kind of give back to that and build through that. And a lot of the pieces that I played were like my own arrangements. They were all Bollywood pieces, like Indian pieces. So they were my own arrangements. So it was really powerful for me to be able to kind of give that back to her and to be able to create something for her, for our relationship, and for her kind of foray into married life. And then another really memorable performance was there's a wedding that for me is kind of sticks out in my mind as something really unique. So first of all, it was a brunch wedding. So they had like an espresso bar and they had like a mimosa thing. It was great. Like if I could read it, like I always recommend doing like a brunch wedding now because it was such a unique experience. But this wedding was unique for me musically because normally when I play for weddings and I work with clients, I give them sort of ceremony milestones that they need to help me design for them. So like, what music do you want to hear as during the bridal party's procession, during bride or bride's procession? How is the groom or groom's going to get up to the altar? Are there special rites that you're going to perform, like sand pouring or like candle lighting or sacred readings or anything like that? And then what song do you want when you're pronounced married for the first time and you share your married kiss, or whatever form of affection you do, and you walk down the aisle? So I work with couples to kind of decide those pieces. And this one wedding that I did, they wanted music throughout the entire thing improvisational. So they gave me kind of the beginning and the end, but then they asked me to kind of curate the middle and like fill it in so that it was music all the time. So normally I play and then stop and the officiant speaks and then I'll play again for the sacred rite or whatever. But this was really unique because it was like 30 minutes continuously of improvisation where I had to slowly build from one piece to the next without any kind of breaks in the middle. And it was really unique for me because it stands out as one of the weddings where I found myself in flow like the most. And for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most people here do, it's a state where you get completely consumed with what you're doing or creating that you're not even aware of things happening around you, the passage of time, that you just get so into the creation, into the art that it kind of becomes you. And that doing that wedding really kind of changed the way that I saw my performance, because it wasn't just about playing this piece and moving on. It was about how can I translate what I'm feeling, what I'm hearing, and what I'm seeing into an art form live. And it kind of broke my fear of improvising and being on the spot musically as well, being able to do that. And it kind of helped me elevate to like another level of performance or open a door to another art form on the harp for me. And so now I'm like not afraid to do that. And I'll ask if clients want music through the entire thing now. And so it's amazing what kind of stretching yourself and thinking as an artist, how can you move forward and elevate your skills and try new things and be courageous and be brave, what it can do to your art forms.
Nice.
Cool. Any other questions, comments?
Just want to say y'all are rad. I'm like, oh, this has been fun to just hear stories and process. And thank you all for sharing. It's been really inspiring. Just as another artist, I'm just like, woo, yay.
Thank you for organizing.
I don't know about the other panelists too, but I find like I'm very much siloed in other like weddings or harpists, like other musicians. Like I don't get to talk with a lot of visual artists or like makeup artists or choreographers and designers. So it's really cool to hear a lot of your stories and experiences.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to bring to F3 today was to incorporate all kinds of art and to kind of bounce off of each other of what art means to you and your field and what it also means to everyone here as a whole. So I really, really appreciate all of you for coming, my panelists especially. I learned so much and I'm very, very excited that I got to meet all of you. And I'm very happy with the turnout from everyone here and on Zoom. And I'm just very grateful. Thank you so much. Great. Yeah. We have 10 minutes in the room. I recorded the Zoom, so you are all, I will try and post it and I'll send out an email to our emailing list, and you can take a look at what everyone has said. I will stop the recording now.